Welcome to FounderLine. I'm your host, Joe Beninato. We are live from Paris. Bonsoir from Paris. I'm here with Marie Ekeland from Elaia Partners and France Digitale.
Bonsoir.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us live today. We're doing a bit of an experiment, having a few shows from Europe, and hopefully you'll enjoy this one as well. Our goal with FounderLine is to provide a forum for startup people to be able to ask questions about startups from experts, people who are either venture capitalists or investors or entrepreneurs. And so if you are thinking about starting a company, or if you are already in a company and you have some questions about a situation, maybe a financing or a hiring situation, or maybe you're thinking about joining a startup, you're looking for a job opportunity at a startup, or anything related to startups, we're here to help you today and see if we can answer your questions. So this is a live show, as I mentioned, and the best ways to reach us, you can call us. In the US, you can call toll-free 1-844-4-FOUNDER. That's 844-436-8633. In Europe, you can call us, it's also in the US, but it's 1-602-753-1628. Again, that's 1-602-753-1628. And you can reach us via email. The email address is help@founderline.com. You can also tweet. Our Twitter handle is @founderline, and we'll be monitoring your tweets and your emails and your calls as the show goes on. So we hope you'll join us. As I mentioned, our guest today is Marie Ekeland. She is a partner at Elaia Capital here in Paris, although she recently decided that she's going to work on some other adventures. And she's also the co-founder and co-president of France Digitale. And the idea behind that is it promotes entrepreneurship in France. And Marie, welcome. Thank you again. So I wanted to maybe give people a little bit of background about what you've been doing. So you've been with Elaia for a number of years. I know France Digitale started a few years ago. So maybe talk about what you've been doing with both of those organizations, so we get a little bit better sense for what you're doing right now.
Sure. So I started at Elaia in 2005. And I was actually in the venture capital industry before that.
Oh, where at?
At Criteo, which was a French bank.
Okay.
And then I joined Elaia in 2005 and been working only in investing in digital economy.
Okay.
Mostly early stage investments and trying to cover the whole spread of digital economy. Well, not all of it, but
as much as you can.
As much as I can, exactly. So the different investment that I've been involved with include Criteo, for example, which might be the most known one in the US.
Yes.
But I've been also investing in connected TV, in medias, or other B2B experiments. I'm also an investor in Scoopit, which is also Palo Alto based. No, San Francisco, sorry.
Oh, San Francisco, okay.
And other type of company like that. We started France Digitale in 2012, which is an association that is joining forces between entrepreneurs and venture capitalists coming from the digital economy, with two different different ideas. The first one is that in France at that time, it was quite obvious that the economical potential of digital economy was not talked about. Whenever you were talking about digital economy, you were talking about copyrights, about how it was disrupting old industries, but you were not talking about the fact that it could be a growth sector for our economy in the future.
Okay.
And so that was number one. Number two is that in France, we are in a very old economy. Like the giants that we have built are actually 101 years old. We have this index on the stock exchange called CAC 40, which is the 40th biggest companies in France.
It's like the Dow Jones, right?
Exactly, the Dow Jones.
Okay.
And so the average age of these companies is 101 years old. So we all thought that there was a problem with our growth ladder, that we were not creating new economical champions, new giants, and wanted to act on all the different friction points that were preventing our company from growing. And so this is why we built that association.
And what sorts of things do they do? I know there was recently a conference, right?
Exactly, the France Digital Day, which is actually giving out every year the result of a barometer that we're doing with EY to show the growth potential. So the numbers are that in average, the growth of our digital startups is 40% per year. If you look at the revenues that is done abroad, it's 39%. If you look at the growth rate of employment, it's 22%. So the message behind that is that we're creating jobs. And if you look at the type of jobs that we are creating, it's for young people, 32 years old in average, on long-term contracts for 92% of those. So it's really massive. And another message that is very important for the politics, the medias, and the other and the country is that it's on a different corporate model. If you look in France, the classic corporate model that people have in mind is that you have a management and employees, and that basically management is exploiting employees, or there's very difficult relationships between the two of them.
Right.
In startups, it's a different model based on sharing the risks and the value creation. So the fact that there's a very small gap in salary between the CEO and the employees in the company, and that everybody is participating to the equity, there's through stock options mechanism and all this, is brand new.
So that didn't exist.
The startup model is unknown.
I see.
And so all the legal framework in France is not adapted to startups. It's starting to be. It's a lot better.
I see.
That we still need to educate on these models. And so this numbers that we have saying that the average gap between the CEO salary and average salary in the company is 2. The fact that 83% of our company are giving away stock options for their employees, that there's a whole bunch of them who have some in average, etc., is very important as a message, because for politics, especially because we're saying it's #1 growth sector in France, giving jobs for young people on long-term contracts through a very virtuous corporate model based on sharing.
And this is all relatively new, like the idea of stock options for employees only the last couple of years, or?
I always have known this, and I've been doing venture capital for the past, now I started in year 2000, so the past 14 years.
Okay.
But it's becoming more and more known, especially for the employees, because at first they didn't understand the value of it.
Right.
So it was difficult, so it was mostly reserved to managers and to executive C-levels people, and now it's spreading towards a lot more people within the companies.
That's great. I mean, that's the typical Silicon Valley startup, right? And you hear stories of, Google kitchen help and masseuses who became millionaires when the company went public, right?
Exactly.
And same thing. And by the way, I should mention, we're here at Criteo's office in Paris. They've been nice enough to host us here, so thank you, Criteo. And that's a company that Marie has been involved with from almost the beginning, right? So thank you for having us here. And you might see the sun peeking through. We're actually looking out over the Tour Eiffel right out the window here. So it's very, very nice. Maybe I'll turn the camera around later and we can show everybody. So you announced you're leaving, and this was just a couple of weeks ago. And I know it's probably been all sorts of people contacting you. Can you share what you're thinking about doing next? Like, what sorts of activities? Will you still be an investor, or what sorts of things?
Sure. So I still plan to be an investor, but I plan to work on different type of models. The thing that I've been coming through as well in France Digital and through Elaia is that the digital economy is disrupting a whole bunch of industry, and I believe venture capital as well. And I think our value proposition for our client, for LPs, could be arranged like the classic fund structure is very rigid, it's very long-term, and I think that we should work more on how we can build some hybrid model where you put in front more the startups, the knowledge that you give, sectorial knowledge, etc. So you can build different alternative models. And I also think that we should work more on the value proposition for our entrepreneurs. How can a VC help more through services, through content, through tools, through networks, through all this in a very much more industrialized way, its entrepreneurs to really be able to develop and grow their company at maximum. So these are two different points that I really want to focus on, and the last one being that we're in a very artisanal model still in the venture capital industry.
Yes.
Mostly in Europe that's the case, and you can see that there's different landscape in the US, of course, but want to work on how you build a brand and how you can build really a more industrialized business as well. So it was easier to start from scratch than to build it within Elaia. So at some point it was so interesting for me to really tackle these issues that I decided to move on.
That's great. And so do you imagine, you're familiar with AngelList in the United States?
Yes, of course.
So are you thinking something more along those lines, or more like a 500 startups or Y Combinator, or which of these models, or none of those?
So maybe a mix of all those, meaning that I don't see any crowdfunding to start with. I think the idea of having a platform and putting people on it can be used for more classic LPs as well, in a co-investment model.
I see.
That to start with, and to be able to to show them and give them more the hand on which startup do you want to be more involved in or not. And it will still be, the board member from the fund, no direct relationship in terms of investing, but more on the allocation with the sector. For corporate, for example, it's a lot more flexible if they want to be more invested in, for example, medias, because it's a media company and they want to have the fund expertise but want to select more the media companies within the fund. They will be able to do it, things like that.
Oh, that's very interesting. How, in the U.S. right now, AngelList is very popular with startups. As well as some of the crowdfunding sites, Indiegogo, et cetera. So are those becoming more popular here? Are startups starting to use those more?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
And we have local players in France, like that have emerged. So there's Smart Angels, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, or startups like this, because AngelList has come to Europe, but they have some legal issues legal framework to be compliant with, things like that. And so we already have local players who are doing the same in France, and it's becoming more and more common either to do that in France, or we have French startups who are raising funds on Kickstarter, or not funds, but who are for their products.
Yeah. No, it's been
so it's a lot of things are happening.
That's great. One of the things when we were in London, there were a lot of questions around how Europe is similar or different from the U.S. And Roberto had a lot of points around, well, you can't just say Europe, because London is different than Paris, is different than Amsterdam, et cetera. So, how do you see it? Is the Paris, or maybe is it France, or is it just Paris is very unique in terms of a startup ecosystem, or similar to some other cities, similar to Silicon Valley? What have you seen?
So I've seen that sector evolve very much in the past 10 years.
Okay.
And mature a lot. It is still, there's a lot of dynamism, but it's still early stage. So Criteo has done a lot of good, because it showed the way that we could build a unicorn starting from Paris.
The unicorn has made it across.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
Woo-hoo.
I'm sure my friend Eileen will be very excited.
And to build a global leader, basically, because if you look at Criteo's revenue, it's less than 15% of its revenue in France. So it's really, and they're present in more than 20 countries, etc. So it was really important for us to understand that there was a path to that. And the ecosystem, with also building a lot of accelerators, a lot of having France Digitale and all the different networks going on, it is very much centered in Paris, but there are still some other cities who are building their own ecosystem locally and who are linked to Paris. So for example, we did a very big day in France Digitale before the event, where 16 towns were coming in with their own ecosystem, trying to exchange and build the way we were discussing all the different issues that we were meeting locally to drive businesses, of course, and then to see, and globally how we could grow internationally, because this is goal number one. And
it was all French cities?
All French cities.
Wow. All over the place.
16.
Wow, that's
16
fantastic.
Towns. Yeah, so the ecosystem is building on, and it's very collaborative because we know that we're late, so we're trying to build it.
I keep trying to, as I've been traveling in Europe the last couple of weeks, figure out how we can, how Silicon Valley and some of the cities here can work together. There are things we see over there and different things over here, and there might be some ways. I know Le Web is obviously one way where Loic comes here, and a few people from the U.S. come over, but not as many. But there must be more ways to collaborate. We'll have to work on those.
And I'm sure a little Paris trip for everybody will do a lot of good, right?
December's not quite as good as maybe September, but we'll see. Well, why don't we take some questions and see if we can help people out. So once again, if you'd like to call us, you can call us from the U.S. 1-844-4-FOUNDER. From Europe, you can call 1-602-753-1628. You can email help@founderline.com, and you can tweet to @founderline. So I'm gonna go in and see if I can. Oh boy, we had our phone situation went down, but we'll keep going with the emails. So. My producer Joel is working on it as we speak, but so here, and he sends me them onto this screen here. But Jacques says, "I'm getting ready to start a company. I live in Paris. Would you recommend I start here or Silicon Valley?" Sounds like he lives here.
If he lives here and
why
he's
not
happy here and he has partner here, he should start in Paris. I mean,
why not?
And if he's talking about raising capital, the one difference between Silicon Valley and Paris and France more generally is that the business angel ecosystem is not as there's not as much business angels, and they're less rich because of it's a culture that is coming in through digital economy, and this virtuous cycle of giving back and investing back is just starting.
Yes.
But still, we're having this starting to be built, and there's a lot of, through the different networks, we can access these people, and you also can access to early funding. So I would say Paris is a good one.
All right, so you heard it, Jacques. You need to.
You need to. Talk to you.
Yeah, what's the best way for people to reach you? Is it via Twitter or?
Yeah, Twitter is good.
Okay, you want to tell them your handle?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So it's @bibicheri, BIBICHERI.
There we go. So easier for her to say than me. So let's see. We have a question from Larry back in California. Larry actually is one of our regular contributors. So what are your thoughts about the importance of an advisory board, how to pick who should be on it, and how to compensate them? And while you're answering that, I'm going to see if I can restart the calling thing. So you can talk to Larry on the...
So advisory board, I had a very important experience through Criteo, meaning that when Criteo started to go to the US, they didn't know anybody. What we did is that we created this very high-level board.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions, press 2. To speak to customer service, press 3.
Have people coming in from the advisory board within the company. Greg Coleman, who is now the president of Criteo, was actually started to know the company through the advisory board. He got to know the company through a different number of years, saw the execution, saw the growth, and at some point decided to jump in. And I know that through all these connections, we were actually able to establish a brand and to be able to discuss with, it was also the same reflex that brought us to get Bessemer on board. We didn't need money, but we thought we needed the brand and the validation from a top tier tier 1 VC in the US. We needed the brand. So we got Bessemer in, and we got this advisory board with Greg Coleman, with Jim Warner, and with other really high-profile people, which was a real plus to hire. Problem for a French company when they go abroad is how can you hire a good profile when the competition is Twitter, Facebook, Google, and all these great US companies.
Yeah.
So having these local personal brands really helped the company in raising better profiles and hiring better profiles, and at some point to get a real big profile joining the company, and it actually made the whole thing start over. So if you can have on your advisory board people that can really help you crack new markets or build some additional value that really do not have elsewhere in the company, it's of great value. And to have them early in the company. And the way we incentivize them was through stock options. That's the only
The advisory board?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Same as most companies.
So we have that in a number of companies, but especially to really make these people get used to the company in the early days and have their involvement, use their brands is important.
Good. I'll just warn you, we're having a few problems with the call-in. So if you have a call, be patient. Keep trying maybe every few minutes, and my producer's working on it as we speak. But we'll keep, we'll work on some emails in the meantime, and hopefully that'll come back up here shortly. So here is one from Paul, an email. How did you discover Criteo, and what led to you investing? So was that a friendship with somebody you knew already, or?
No, Criteo was a fun story. I actually was just starting at Elaia. It was my first investment at Elaia, Criteo.
Wow.
It was actually, Dominique Vidal, who did the investment for Index.
Yes.
It was also his first investment at Index.
Oh.
And Matt Krona, who did the investment for SoftBank, was his first investment as well.
All three of you in the first round?
No. So I was in the first round. Dom was round number 2, Series B, and then Matt was round D.
Oh,
it was pretty funny.
Yeah. So, and how did you hear about it?
So I was then trying to build my own portfolio, so I was doing all these different forums, startups attendance things and all that, and I went to one that was taking place in a university called Supélec. Which was actually the studies that J.B. Rudel from Criteo did. So he was there at some point because it was his old school, and he presented Criteo, but he was alone. It was really the beginning of the project. And I remember because it was his second startup that he created. The first one was called Kiwi and was sold to American Greetings. And so he kind of knew a lot of the different venture capitalists that he saw. So I remember meeting him and him telling me, you're the only person that I'm meeting today that I don't know. And I'm like, well, hi.
Wow.
Nice to meet you. And so criteria of investment were that he was very convincing in his, well, of course, since he was a serial entrepreneur, we had a little low risk of execution, but he really had this market analysis and perspective and vision that was truly clear and understandable, and I really saw what he wanted to do. And he was tackling a fundamental issue that was that at that point, all e-merchants had a lot of difficulties selling anything else than the bestsellers. It was year 2006, right?
Yeah.
So it was, when I met him, it was end of 2005.
Okay.
And all there was a lot of, for example, churns on VOD or e-merchants selling only the top of the catalogs, products that are really well known.
Right.
And that didn't know how to make the long tail work more. And so the example was Amazon's recommendation engine, the thing that is saying if you
like this,
it says people who have the same taste you have actually like this and this, so you should have a look. So this recommendation engine, and his idea was to say, actually, all the e-merchants will need the same recommendation engine. So I'm going to bring them to them, right? I'm going to do this. And to tackle the fact that you will need personalized recommendation to have the long tail being bought by. So I thought it was a true fundamental need for merchants.
Yeah.
I liked the vision. I had no doubt about the execution. And so I said, let's go. And then he was also very reassuring on the technological side, because very quickly he decided to merge his project with another project from people he met in an incubator in Paris called Agoranov. And so he met these two tech from ex-Microsoft that were coming from Seattle and that were working on the same algorithm, same project.
Same problems.
Decided to merge the companies. And so I was very reassured about the quality of the technology. The guy was not alone. There was this founder team, very qualitative. Real subject.
What was the initial investment?
3 million euros.
3 million euros. That was the seed round, or
seed round. So myself and another fund called Idea Invest, Elaia plus Idea Invest.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Paul, hopefully that answers your question. We're going to move on to a question from Philippe. I am looking for a technical co-founder in Paris. Any suggestions on how to find the right person? So Criteo went through this, right?
Criteo went through this. So founders are always difficult to find.
It's hard, yeah.
There's some job fairs only for startups that are taking place. One is organized by Route Baguette. And the other one is organized, it's called Rejoignez une Startup, and it should be organized this year. But so these job fairs are dedicated to startups and are only for tech people, so he should go there and meet some people. And then through all the different incubators, accelerators, just stay in that ecosystem. And I think that would be my advice for that.
It's hard,
Founders is difficult always.
Although it's always good to work with somebody if that's possible. So maybe reach out. True. Think about who was the best technical person you ever worked with, and you never know. They might be ready to try something different, and having that relationship is so important, because two people can come together, but it's a little bit like speed dating. You never know if it's going to work out. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck, Philippe. I hope you find someone. Let's see. Yvonne has an email. I am looking for an engineering role at a rapidly growing Paris startup. What are some of the most interesting companies right now? So you probably
in this
biased.
Building,
Yeah.
You actually have Criteo, who is hiring 300 person in Paris this year.
Wow.
You have BlaBlaCar, which just raised $100 million
huge
fund.
Round, yeah.
Huge
that
round
one actually we heard. Yeah, I saw that when I came in. I saw they were in the same building.
Right.
That's the ride sharing.
Exactly.
That's great. Those companies are all doing well in the States as well. So that's the biggest one here.
Yes. There's also in the connected objects area. There's a lot of good companies like YThings.
Okay.
That just they just launched a new watch.
Oh yeah.
Activity.
That's
Did
right.
You see that? Yeah.
Is that Paris-based company?
It's Paris-based.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. They make the scale and some of the other. I had no idea that was in Paris. Okay.
So Netatmo is also in the connected object scene. So I would look at these companies.
And they're all hiring pretty actively.
They are hiring well, especially BlaBlaCar, and now that they raised this $100 million round, I think just send them your resume.
This building is gorgeous, by the way. The art installation in the courtyard, as well as the rooftop deck, it's very nice. So you can come here. It's a nice work environment. Lots of great places to go. So good luck, Yvonne. I hope that helps you out. Okay, we have one from Marco. What improvements to the French startup ecosystem would you recommend? Any changes in governmental rules? So I don't know the French startup ecosystem very well. Does the government block entrepreneurship, or are there things that can be done to help?
So yes, I've been active on that part through France Digital.
Okay.
Because just after we launched, I don't know if you heard about that pigeon movement
Yes.
in France coming from the entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Because the government had completely changed capital gain taxation. And
for
everybody.
Oh, for everybody. Okay.
And so the the average and general regime was going from 62% to 44%
wow.
taxation rate.
That's
which
crazy.
Was crazy.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. And so there was this whole pigeon movement, and we've actually been the ones the government were discussing with through France Digital.
Okay.
And I was very much part of this discussion because after they understood that it was really, because the thing is that they didn't understand the startup model. Startup is all about growth.
Yes.
And it's all about gains when you sell your shares, right? Capital gain. It's all about that. You never give dividends to your VC.
Right, right.
And the way that you are actually giving money to your shareholders is through them selling their shares, which was very different from the classic entrepreneurial model from France, and that they just didn't have in mind. So they had no idea they were harming us so much. So then I kind of was at the head of piloting the whole taxation for capital gain reform, which is a lot better now. So it's sometimes even better than in United States.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Great. I should move here. Maybe, yeah, it's
but
pretty high back
But we still have
west.
some other issues. So number one issues is that I was talking about stock options, which for us is very important.
Okay.
And so we have in France, always very complicated. We have a special regime for startups and young companies, which you lose when you grow.
I see.
And when you lose it, then it's hell in terms of taxation. You are at 62%. So
Yeah.
we're working on this and having the whole stock options or free shares taxation compliant for startups.
Okay.
This is important.
So, so it sounds like, most of these are around the investment rules, right? The capital gains. What about employment? Any things there that are important?
So there are other two big
since it appears you're calling back
axes that we need to work on. The first one is around, so for employment, is the fact that one of the reasons that the growth ladder is broken is that you have a lot you have some numbers that when you reach the number, like when your company is reaching 50%, then you have a whole different legal framework to put in place. You need to have a representative for your employees. You need to have a whole different type of things.
Okay.
Comité d'entreprise, etc. So it kind of gets the company a lot more rigid, and you have to do a lot of administrative stuff that you really do not want to do. And it kind of, and we have the same thing at 250%. So it's not flexible, and there's always preventing from growing when you have this. So we're working on how can you have this a lot more smooth rules for everybody.
Got it.
The second thing is for financing. If you look at the way SMEs in France are getting financed, it's 92% through debt. In the US, SMEs are getting their money from capital, 80%.
Wow.
Equity.
That's a big difference.
It's a very big difference.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of cultural difference. Some entrepreneurs will, think they don't want any investors. They want to control their own company. They want to, give it after to their sons or whatever. So there's still a lot of entrepreneurs that are thinking that way. But there's also one of the problem, which is that the savings of the French people are not invested in the economy, in the companies. It is invested in other type of savings through the debt of the countries, through this and this and this. So there's a lot of money that is, all the money from the French people are not in the company. And this is one of the problems that makes that the financing chain is not smooth enough and is not, there's not enough money to really, for example, we're missing growth funds. The ecosystem is very dynamic, and we have a lot of great small companies, but big rounds like just BlaBlaCar, what BlaBlaCar did, are very rare because we don't have enough money coming in to make them, to pour in the company and make them go international, be very aggressive, be very ambitious.
Was that a France investor who did the $100 million round, or was it
Index? It's European.
Index. Okay, so they do some
European and
here
US
and US, right? Okay, got it. Well, it's a good.
And Axel, who was already inside the company.
Oh, okay.
It was led by Index, and Axel so put
wow,
money in.
It's a big round.
Right, and there's also a historical French investor called Elaia.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're going to give up on the calling. I'm not sure what's going on, and they're still working on it. But we're going to take a moment right now just to thank our sponsors. We have 2 sponsors. We couldn't do this show without help from our 2 sponsors, Ustream and Orrick. First, I want to thank Brad Hunstable, who is the CEO of Ustream. He, when he heard about FounderLine, he thought it was a great idea, and immediately introduced us to his team, who have really been helping us out. It allows us to create a mobile TV studio and go around Europe and broadcast live back to the States as well as elsewhere in the world. So if you're thinking about streaming meetings, definitely go talk to Ustream. You can find out more at their website. It's ustream.tv. I also want to thank Mitch Zuklie. We had hoped to have Mitch on today, but with the call is not working, we might be bailing out on that. If we get it working, we'll bring him back in. Oh, actually, it looks like it might be working, and so maybe we'll go to Mitch here in a second. But if you are working on a startup, you want to have a great lawyer working with you. Not so much for legal advice, which is important, but also just advice in general. They work on so many different transactions and agreements between parties, way more than you will ever see. So make sure you go get a great lawyer. I've worked with Mitch and his team for many years. If you want to find out more about Orrick, you can go to their website at orrick.com. So, and I should also, again, thank Criteo for hosting us here. Now the sun's setting. We see some beautiful clouds outside through the windows here. You're probably starting to see some of that on the screen here. I don't know if we can get Mitch in here, but I'm gonna see if Mitch is there, and let me see if this is gonna work. I'm gonna turn that on.
How are you?
And Mitch, are you with us today?
Hey Joe, how are you?
Oh, what a miracle! It actually worked. I don't know how you say that in French, but I'm glad we were able to get you in here. Thanks for your patience.
Enchanté.
Merci.
So Mitch, I know today we're going to chat a little bit about hiring, just for a few minutes, and so maybe you can start us off with a few thoughts about hiring in startups, and then I'll ask Marie to join in as well. And there's about a 5-second delay on this.
So Joe, we talked a little bit last week about a similar topic, but I think one of the biggest challenges that U.S. startups face when they try to bring on talented people from Europe is first that they don't recognize that all hiring, whether it's with respect to consultants or whether it's with respect to employees, is governed by the law of the place that you're hiring, as well as your home jurisdiction. So that means if you're hiring employees in France, you've got to be cognizant of French law, and you have to recognize that, for example, there might be a 6-month trial period for that person, and once you go beyond that period, it can be very challenging to terminate an employee, much more challenging than the way that we traditionally think of it. That's not to say, of course, people shouldn't do it. There's incredibly talented employees all around the world, and some of the best developers in the world are in Europe, and so many companies, of course, outsource a lot of their development, particularly to Eastern Europe. But it's one of the things that you have to be particularly careful of. So you just have to make sure that you talk with someone who knows what they're doing. And it's counterintuitive. The concept of being able to hire at will is very, very common for us, and it's not the case everywhere in the world. And of course, it's not ubiquitous in every European jurisdiction. The second thing I think that's important to recognize is when you enter into any kind of a contract, whether it's with an employee, whether it's with a developer, you have to pay attention to where the dispute what law governs and where the dispute, if there ever is one, takes place. The last thing, if you're a startup, so you're based in California, want to do is get into French courts or Belgian courts or something like that over a dispute, because it's just really hard to do that. So you should try to find a forum which is fair for people, or maybe even be neutral, or a governing law that's neutral. Well, of course, a lot of folks like their home jurisdiction, but sometimes picking something like UK law may be safer. So I don't want to go on in too much length, but I think those are two things that are commonly misunderstood and where startups can get themselves into some trouble.
Perfect. And what have you seen? I guess, well, Criteo is probably the reverse, right? Headquartered here, but offices around the world. Mm-hmm. I don't know which cities. I know Palo Alto is one of those. But have you seen challenges with hiring outside of here in France?
Yes, of course. Main question, as I was saying, in the U.S. is to get quality people when the competition is so difficult, especially on engineers, for example. Yeah. And that you don't have a brand that is known abroad, and that is difficult to motivate to work for a French startup when you have all this. So we have trouble like this, and so it's very important to get that U.S. validation branding from top partners like venture capitalists or other mentors or people like this. Then there's a question that is for us in France pretty surprising, is the loyalty. We have a very loyal engineer team in France, mm-hmm. or just employee more in general. And so the duration within the company is a lot longer than in the U.S., for example.
Oh, really? So they leave very quickly in the U.S.?
Yes,
like
a lot
1
more.
year or 18
more.
months?
You have more, people stay longer in companies in France. So it's easier to build really a team from, get the same DNA and things like that. So it's more difficult to make it evolve, but there's also some good things about having people long enough and maintaining the knowledge within the company and getting people working very hard and for a long period of time. Yes. That was a surprise, actually, when they went to the U.S. To see that. I don't know how it is for U.S. companies, but
it's extremely challenging. It's people. It's almost like they treat it as a temporary role, and so retaining employees is very difficult in general. So
retention is very good in France.
Oh, that's good. And I think. People have experimented with different ways to try and incent that, but it's always a challenge. So, Mitch, any other thoughts you'd like to share on the hiring front before we go?
The only thing I'd say is that I think that overwhelmingly so, people who do hire abroad have had very positive experiences with it. The talent pool is great, benefit from different cultural perspectives, exactly. And I think it's generally been something that has been a huge competitive advantage for the companies who take the time to invest in it and do it well.
All right, great. Well, Mitch, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are in the morning over there, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Have a good glass of San Joseph for me, and enjoy your time.
All right, we'll bring one back for you, okay?
All right, sounds
Thank
good.
you very much.
All right.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Merci.
All right, that's Mitch Zuklie, who's the chairman and CEO of Orrick, who we're so lucky to have him join us each week. It looks like we have a caller as well, and so I am going to try and switch this over. Let's see. Do we have a caller on the line? Hello?
Yes.
Hi, who's this?
Hello?
Hello.
Antoine.
Bonsoir.
I can speak French or English.
Why don't you speak French? Who is this?
Antoine.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You have Marie here.
Hey, good to meet you, Joe, and good to meet you, Marie. Let me speak in English. I had a very specific question. In the U.S., in the venture world, about 10 years ago, you had a new class of venture people that called themselves the seed people like Jeff Clavier and so forth,
Seed.
like first money inside companies. And they did spot a gap in the venture industry, and they did a great job at filling it and have been very successful for the last 10 years or so. It hasn't quite happened yet in Europe, and I was wondering if you had any insight as to why that particular problem, which is a great problem. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that have big-time problems raising seed money. There's probably more VCs in Europe that do Series B and C, but there's a very big gap, much like there was in the US 10 years ago. But I don't see a lot of solutions being implemented in Europe other than maybe some big family office like Xavier Niel and the likes. It looks like there's probably no appetite from LPs, or maybe great investors are just not interested because there's probably structural issues and they don't think they can return the fund. So I was wondering if you had any opinion as to why no good solutions have been established just to create a seed venture industry as it did happen in the US about 10 years ago. And clearly there's a big problem in Europe there in terms of financing.
All right, thank you, Antoine. So what do you think about
Sure.
seed investing in the French ecosystem?
So in France, there was actually a big movement around seed 2 years ago when the French public bank called BPI France launched the whole initiative around seed investing. They have I think 300 million euro to deploy in seed funds.
Okay.
So the last fund from Elaia is actually a seed fund from 45 million euros. And Partech has also a seed fund. I know Innovacom have. So there's at least 5 or 6 seed funds that were created in France the last 2 years, and I know of at least 3 to 4 more in the next year or so that will be created as well.
Wow.
So it's still too early to have the results of this. So I'm sure it's, to know if it was a good initiative or not. But I know there has been a lot more money at the seed level that was invested through venture capital funds. But for me, the seed financing problem remains, as there is not such an important business angel ecosystem. And I believe that if you really want to have a very strong seed ecosystem, it needs to be very decentralized. You cannot rely on 10 venture seed funds to really be able to build that base of pyramid very large that will make it able to build the giants and the champions on top. So we will have to work on the business angeling ecosystem and have it grow as well, not only through venture capital fund, if you want to have and solve the seed financing problem of the startups. I think we have to work on both.
That's great. And in the U.S., we're very fortunate because there's a long history of companies like Netscape and AOL, right. and through history, lots of wealth was created, and those individuals started funding companies. So this is a 10 to 20 year problem, right?
Exactly.
But it's great to see that more institutional funds are coming around out here, and as you said, as more companies like Criteo have success, that will lead to more angels here and more investment. So I think it's a great question. Thank you for calling us, Antoine. So let's move on to actually it's a related question from Julia. It says, what is the best way to raise a seed round in Paris? Is there something like AngelList focused on France? So
yes, there's a number of platforms like Smart Angels, FundMe, and some other, Anaxalto. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. But there's also seed venture capital funds that you should also see. And then there's some other business angels type of mentors that you can go and see, and that's important as well because sometimes entrepreneurs tend to forget that what is really important, coming with the financing as well, is that if you can get on your board people that will accelerate your experience, that will bring expertise on board, that will make you save time in all your different experimentations, and that you can rely on, and that will be the sparring partner and all this. And so that can come through, of course, venture capitalists, but it can also come through business angels or independent board members. But putting on the right governance, even at seed level, is truly important because it's adding great value. Putting the right set of ambition from the start, getting expertise in and all this is important. So who you're putting on your board is a key question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julia, good luck. If you want to reach out, I'm sure Marie would be happy to chat with you at some point. So here's another question from Carrie. How can we get more women founders? What can VCs do to help increase the number of women founders? So, in the U.S., this is a big challenge always. I imagine it is also here, right?
Yes.
So are there activities that are happening to help with that?
So just to give you a number, we're measuring that on the barometer from France Digitale as well. It's 6%.
Founders,
female founders.
I believe that's lower than the U.S., but I don't know the number in the U.S.
So it's very low. So it is an issue, and in France, the whole politics around innovation have always been around research and development. So very scientific engineering backgrounds, which are historically in France very male. So since you are on very tough innovation, usually that is really pushed by all the different initiatives in government, it's kind of pushing down the women as well. So
yes.
So it's not helping. So what can we do to help and get more female founders, and what can the venture capital industry do as well? First, the venture capital industry is not very female as well. So I don't know how it is in the U.S., but in France it's getting better with the junior, with the younger generation. But with my generation, I believe I'm like the almost female at all my boards. I think I have 2 boards. I used to have, among my 9 board seats, 2 boards where I'm now the only female.
Wow.
So
that's a challenge in the U.S. as well.
Even in the venture capital industry, you don't have a lot of women in France. So it needs to be worked on as well. And I believe it will come with the 2 of them. And then you need to, what can we do to improve having more female founders? I truly believe in role models. And I think what you want to see are female entrepreneurs who are really making everybody else dream, like Steve Jobs has or Mark Zuckerberg has for a younger generation, and you want to be able to project yourself. So I see, it's not we're missing founders, entrepreneurs, but people like Marissa Mayer or Sherry Sandberg are doing a great job inspiring all these different women. Because for me, it's a question of trust and just going there and wanting to do it, and then it will happen.
Are there French female founders? Isn't there a pair of women who have a company that did very well? I can't remember the name of it, but
so we have some. There's aufeminin.com with Marie-Laure Sauty-Chalon, who was one of them. There's Mon Showroom. But they're not very well known.
I see.
There's My Little Paris, the 2 sisters, who are also. So they need to be really more seen, and so it will give appetite to the others. And I believe in that role modeling, and in the fact that people understand as well that innovation and entrepreneurship is not, in digital economy, is not all about hardware and coding, very strong infrastructure things, but also about just, finding the right business model, design, lifestyle things.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Good. And yes, I know our logo disappeared back here. I'll try and fix that in a minute. We're having all sorts of technical challenges today. The screensaver went on. So here's another email from Carl. It says, the France Digitale website says, France Digitale promotes a new business model in which young people, innovation, and the creation of shared value have a major role to play. Can Marie describe this business model? How is it different from the business models in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, it's actually the corporate model that is different. To link on to what I was saying about the barometer, when you're explaining to politics or medias that we're not in companies where it's really, the management that is exploiting the employees, but in a common project with an affectio societatis, with everybody is sharing the risk and sharing the value creation. That is a different mindset. So we were actually not talking about business model, but about corporate models, about the fact that when you start a company, usually politics have in mind that, for example, the company is the boulangerie, or so that you have one owner, and maybe his wife is with him and has 10% of the company, but he keeps it all his life, and at the end, when he retires, he will sell it to somebody else. So that's a classic model, the classic corporate model that politics, medias have in mind in France. So we needed to emphasize is the fact that there's a different startup model, that is, we're starting something all together, sharing value creation and risk through capital, through equity, and taking risk, building the whole project, and at some point we will either sell it or go public or have something like this and make money through the capital gains. This is a very different model. And once we did that, we're starting a new company, and having this whole cycle, or investing in another company and becoming business angels. This cycle is brand new in France, and well, it's not brand new. It has 20 years, but in the in the mainstream minds, right, it's not there yet. So this is why we're always putting the accent on this and saying, look, this is what is happening. It's different. We need to rethink our whole economy and thinking in a more entrepreneurial way.
That's great. Well, so Carl, I hope that answers your question. We have just a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to be sure that if you had something you wanted to say, that we had some time for it. So I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but either to the U.S. audience or to the France audience.
Sure. I think we didn't talk much about the type of trends that we had in the market.
That'd be great.
And we talked a lot about Criteo, but what is interesting about Criteo is it's actually has built a complete ecosystem around it, around big data, and around ad tech. So France is really one of the leaders in this area. And we have, for big data, for example, we have true local assets, because we always have great mathematicians and great engineers that we're really capitalizing on. So this is one of the sectors that we're focusing on, and the fact that we have a global leader that is consolidating the market. They already bought a French startup called Tedemis, which is doing email retargeting. And there's other companies in the video ad tech space like eBuzzing, who merged with Teads and people like that. Things are happening in the ad tech in France, and France is one of the most evolved market on this. Other sector, and we also talked about the leader in that sector, is BlaBlaCar. It's all the sharing economy. That's in France. There's the usage is really there. All the customers, the society is used to either selling their clothes online around Vestiaire Collective or this, or their books after Christmas with Price Minister. So we've been through sharing economy for quite a while, and the market is very mature around this. And then there's also, we talked about it, connected objects, where a lot of things are coming on. We have the drones with Parrot, I think the scale. There's a connected object operator called Sigfox that is truly bringing new technology, allowing objects to connect at very long distances.
So you call that connected objects here?
Internet of Things. Yeah. We called it Objet Connecté.
Yeah. Oh,
so it's IoT.
It's better than Internet of Things, which
like
is a horrible name.
Yes. So yeah, we called it like this. And the last thing is lifestyle, with a lot of since it's really part of our culture, things going on about new ways of consuming food, of consuming cultural assets, music, video, and things like that. So I think a lot of things are going on, but I just wanted to point out the different type of startups or sectors that we were really seeing emerged as a venture capitalist.
That's great. Well, it's good to see the ecosystem here growing and doing well, and I'm definitely going to have to come back some more.
With pleasure.
But unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank Marie for joining us.
Thank you very much.
You can track her down on Twitter. She said it before. It's at Bibi Cherie. You can check her out. Tune in next week for another episode of FounderLine. We'll be back in the U.S. at our regular Thursday 5 o'clock Pacific time slot, which is the middle of the night here. So you're going to have to check the recorded versions. Our guest will be David Hornick from August Capital, who's an old friend and a great venture capitalist who's been doing all sorts of interesting investing. That's next Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks once again to Criteo for hosting us here today as the sun sets over the Seine, and also to Orrick and Ustream, our amazing sponsors. You can follow us on Twitter. It's at FounderLine. You can email us questions during the week if you have questions you want to send in advance, or go to our website. You can subscribe to updates, and we'll send you regular emails. Also, our podcast is becoming more and more popular, so you can go to iTunes and get the podcast. Thanks for watching. Here's to the crazy ones. Au revoir from Paris, and we'll see you again next week.
Au revoir.